Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. We are here live with you this morning on this Tuesday morning, and we're so happy that you tuned in. Financial Issues is a ministry that helps to educate people about financial issues from a biblical worldview. So just like the many issues in our lives, we can look at them one of two ways. We can look at them as the world looks at them, or we can look at them through the lens of Scripture. And so that's what we do. So let's get right to our stewardship verse of today. It comes from Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate one and love the other one, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. So I think this is really not so much a command as it is an observation of human nature by the one who created humans. So the scripture's not saying don't serve two masters, don't split your loyalties and allegiance or your time, talent, and treasure, because that assumes that we are actually able to serve or love two masters simultaneously and equally. What I hear is the scripture saying you cannot serve. It is impossible. It is not possible with human limitations to serve two masters. One version reads, adoration of one feeds contempt for the other. So, therefore, you cannot worship God and money. We got to choose, right, Seth?
That's well said, Shana. It really is. It's clear as day. You know, because we can't split our allegiances to one or the other. We must make the choice. We either serve God or we serve money. It's that clear. And my hope and prayer for us, and I know this is yours as well, Shana, is that we use the money He's given us to bring Him glory, not for personal gain, not even for us to be able to have some semblance of control or feel like we have that hedge of protection, but all to bring the Lord glory and trusting that He's going to provide that protection for us. I think, money, like all the tools at our disposal, is at its best when it's used to glorify God. And so I hope that can be what we do today. So, Shana, moving to our topic for the day, we had a good question that came in from Brandon, one of our partners. He was asking about the point system of the major indices. So here's the question from Brandon. Would you be able to explain more on how the point system works for the major indexes? I understand the concept for the Dow Jones, for example, going up or down a certain percentage, but what does that 40,000 or so points represent? I know, Shana, the Dow Jones has been hanging right around that 40,000 number. What does it mean that the NASDAQ, the Dow, and the S&P 500 have vastly different point totals? So what's some insight you can give Brandon here, Shana?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go over the basics of it. Sure. I think it's good to have a foundational explanation, but, at the end of the day, it's just, all of the indices give us direction on which ways the markets are moving in general. So to kind of break it down, the Dow Jones is calculated using what's called a price-weighted formula that involves the following steps. Number one, they sum up the prices of all 30 companies in the index. So that's an important key component of it. The Dow is made up of only 30 companies that are supposed to represent the economy, the broad economy, but 30 stocks really represent that broad of an economy. Then you divide that sum by what's called the Dow divisor, which is a number that is regularly adjusted for stock splits. So it's kind of like pi. 3.14 or something like that. 1415.
Megan knows all that stuff. She's a math whiz. I'm not.
Right. So the Dow divisor, if you want to crowd your brain with more useless information, is 0.15172752595384. So there you go. And I didn't memorize that. I have it written down. So.
No, that was memorized, Shen. I know it.
So this means that for every $1 change in the price of a stock in the Dow results in a 6.59 point movement in the Dow Jones. So all that to say, the Dow Jones is price weighted, meaning that stocks with a higher share price have a greater impact on the indice's value. Now, if you listen to the program a lot, you know that stock price alone doesn't really tell you much of anything about a company. So a company with a smaller market cap but a higher share price can have a larger influence on the index than a much larger company with a lower share price. The S&P, now we are getting too far in the weeds. I said I wouldn't. But the S&P is calculated very similarly. The S&P 500 is calculated using what's called a free float market capitalization weighted methodology. So the formula can be expressed as the S&P index is the sum of the market caps of all of the S&P divided by one of those index divisors. So it's the divisor is adjusted for stock splits, special dividends, spinoffs, etc. And that's basically the breakdown of how they're calculated.
Yeah, that's good, Shana. And this is a question that we get a lot. It's good to just be reminded, why do we look at the major indices? We talk about them every day almost. There must be a reason for it. Why do we do that?
Right. So they simply give us a standardized measure to gauge which directions the markets are moving, to get an indication, of whether companies are becoming more valuable or less valuable.
And, just from a history perspective, too, I've been curious to this also. How long has this been the case that investors have been looking at these three stock indices? It's been for the last century, longer? What's that look like?
Well, they all have different inception dates. So, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which was the very first one. It was first published in 1896 by Charles Dow and Edward Jones. Initially, and it's not the same Edward Jones that the company is named after. So initially, the index included 12 industrial companies because our economy was much narrower at that time. It's grown to over 30 now.
Yeah. And what kind of representation do our stock picks have in these major indices?
Well, not much. It's very different. So the filters and priorities for inclusion in the S&P 500 are much different than our filters for inclusion for the financial issues strategy. So, for example, the S&P to be in one of the S&P 500, which are the largest U.S. domiciled companies, stocks traded on the exchange. Number one. And I will tell you this before I give you the criteria, even though it says must be, they break their rules a lot. So it's supposed to be, I'll say it's supposed to be, a U.S. company. It's supposed to have a market capitalization of at least $8.2 billion, and at least 50% of its shares must be available for trade. That's referred to as the float, and it must be traded on a major U.S. stock exchange, either the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. And companies supposed to have positive earnings for the latest quarter and the previous four quarters, and they are supposed to have traded at least 250,000 daily shares in the 6 months prior to inclusion. So those are kind of the criteria for inclusion in the S&P 500. That is not the criteria for our strategy. So it's not a good idea to compare the market to financial issues. And a lot of time the market is a term that gets interchanged for equity investing. And that's, not a good, not comparing apples to apples. So for financial issues, number one criteria is this company funding agendas that are offensive to God? So, that's not even a thought for the way that the world manages things, but it is our first and foremost criteria, because if we're going to invest God's money that we're chosen to manage, we're certainly not going to do it in a company that's going to turn around and use the resources to support something that grieves the heart of the Lord. Number two, our strategy is sector-driven for diversification. So that's not really the case with the S&P. It's mostly driven by how large a company is, what their share price is, so on and so forth. So that creates an asset allocation that's not conducive for every single investor. So ours is sector-driven. We have different age models, and we recommend different allocations to different sectors based on age, and age is synonymous with your growth, with your risk tolerance and growth goals. So it's it's really clear to see with hindsight, but it doesn't come into focus that the hang on, I'm running out of time here. I'm getting off flustered. Let me just skip that and go on to the third thing is that it is the the third criteria for us is that the company is operating in excellence. So it has to be a leader with strong management, and that management was either responsible for the most recent success, or we have really high confidence that the new management is going to continue that pattern of success, or that new management is actually turning around the company. So much different criteria for being included in the market or the S&P. And, that's what a lot of advisors just invest in, is just invest in an index and let it go. Well, we have a little bit different strategy, and you can find out more about that strategy by going to financialissues.org. I always have too much to try to squeeze in. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a break, but we'll be back.
I want to make a point. No matter what happens, I'll always be there for you.
I know.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common: the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. Our phone lines are open today if you're watching the live program, which happens in the morning, 8 a.m. Central, 9 Eastern Time. 610-363-1110 is the phone number if you want to get in the call queue. You will be the first caller. I wanted to remind you again, we have letters of encouragement on our website, financialissues.org, for you to sign. We would love for you to sign the letters, one to John Deere and one to Tractor Supply. That is sort of a pat on the back for their decisions to turn away from their from their most recent DEI woke drift, to just returning to focusing on their core business, serving their customers with excellence, not sponsoring gay pride parades and festivals and things like that that are not really high priorities for their customer base. And so they heard from customers, they heard from their shareholders, and they decided to scrap those whole programs. So we want to give them a pat on the back and tell them, good job. You don't have to kowtow to the leftist agenda and start incorporating this kind of stuff in your business. It's, it's just lies that if you don't support wokeness, that you're going to get a lot of backlash. And that's what they're seeing. They're seeing the backlash is coming from actually supporting the stuff that I would say the majority of people don't agree with, especially their demographics. So you've got until this Thursday, July the 25th, to get those letters signed. We encourage you to do that. We want to, we don't want the voice of Christians to always sound negative. We get accused often of being harsh and judgmental and those kind of things. When people make good decisions, we want to rejoice in those decisions with them and give them a pat on the back and tell them good job.
Absolutely.
So yesterday, the markets rallied as the tech sector continued upwards after a rocky finish to last week. So we did post some commentary, I do believe, on the website for partners, getting a little bit deeper into the details about what's going on there. If you are a partner, we do encourage you to log in and read that. We do our very best to get it updated at least once a week for you. Typically happens late on Mondays. So, but you can log in anytime during the week and see things. We'll put up special notes there as well for just our partners. So by the closing bell yesterday, the Dow was up 1/3 of a point. The S&P was up a little over 1%, and the NASDAQ was up a little over 1.5%. Hopefully you have a little clearer understanding of that after we went through how some of those things are calculated in that first segment there.
Yeah.
And the pre-markets, let me hop over and take a look. We're hovering about around the flat line. So they're around the flat line, but dipping a little bit into negative territory. The things that are really driving the market this week are going to be earnings season. So the headline here that I see on CNBC, stock futures little changed as traders await key earnings reports. So, earnings is what drives the market long term. And so the market is, as they should be, waiting to see what's happening with companies. That's going to give it a very good idea of what's happening in the economy overall. As far as economic news goes, two pretty key pieces. We've been looking at unemployment numbers every week, and we're seeing a trend there. But the key numbers to watch this week are going to be the GDP numbers and the PCE numbers, which come out later in this week. The PCE probably have a good idea of where that's going. Probably no big surprises there, but that's the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation. And the Fed is in their quiet period now, so we won't hear any real Fed speak. We might hear news articles and people's opinion about what the Fed's going to do, but we won't hear any speak from the members of the Fed as they're in the quiet period now, ahead of their next interest rate decision, which is probably going to be nothing, no rate changes. But there's a growing case that if the Fed doesn't want to be leading from behind and being in a reactionary position, they probably should throw the market a little bone and go ahead and cut rates just a little bit this meeting. I don't think that they'll do it, but I think that they're going to be forced to do a much bigger one in September.
Yeah. And, Shana, you were talking about the things that are impacting the markets. One of the big things also is what's going on in this political cycle, which to my knowledge, Shana, these last 2 weeks has been the craziest political cycle I've ever seen in my lifetime. It's been nuts. And of course, the latest update of this is that President Biden did quit his campaign. He's not quitting the presidency. He's going to remain the president for the next 6 months or whatever it is. But he is quitting the presidential campaign. I saw an interesting headline here. Biden's withdrawal could put Democrats' economic platform in flux. So the exit from the presidential race might reignite some debate between moderate and progressive Democrats. I didn't even know there were still moderate Democrats out there, Shana, but apparently there are. Biden claimed in a statement announcing his withdrawal, quote, "America has the strongest economy in the world." He touted his administration's, quote, "historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs for seniors and in expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans." Shana, I'm not so sure if he's seeing or living in the same country that we've been seeing for these last 3.5 years. But at any rate, Biden's named successor in the race, VP Kamala Harris, has repeatedly touted the administration's economic policies, though they're far more moderate than her previously stated positions. So just winding the clock back a little bit, Back in 2020, during her failed campaign to be the presidential nominee, Harris called for raising the corporate income tax from 21 to 35%. She also championed Bernie Sanders' proposed Medicare for all reforms to the healthcare system, and she spoke in favor of strong drug pricing controls, including tying U.S. prices to what drugs cost in other nations. During her presidential campaign, she proposed $10 trillion to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. A lot of those similar Democrat talking points, Shana. Shana, what do we make of all of this? Not just all this stuff here, but what's going on with Biden, too. I'm not even sure where he is. Frankly, I don't even know if he's alive right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, there's theories out there about that, too. But the latest that I heard is that Biden is supposed to return to the White House today. Yeah. So I guess that'll put an end to all of the conspiracy theories, or maybe confirm them. I don't know.
Exactly.
But no, I think it's very convenient that Biden got COVID, has had to be in isolation. I think that he did the right thing. Yeah. I don't think it was necessarily his choice, but I don't think that a lot of the things that Biden is doing right now are his choice. I think that his mental capacity is very, very, very diminished, and I'm not even sure he has the mental capacity to remain president for the rest of his term. Right. I just hope this doesn't open the United States up for any nefarious attacks. I hope that that's not the case. But I think the Biden administration has done a very good job of keeping. They kept Biden in the basement during his last campaign, and they've kept Kamala locked up kind of in the same basement for much of her vice presidency. So we haven't seen much from her. The things that she's really been tasked with was the border. And that's a disaster. She I don't know how many times she actually went. I don't know that she really has a good grasp of what's happening down there, but I have very, very low confidence that she would do a good job as the next president of the United States. It would be pretty much a continuation of Biden. The polls are not showing. I mean, the polls show that she has a better chance of beating Trump than Biden did, but it's still showing former President Trump really leading in those polls. So I don't know. I to be honest, I'm really shocked that she is the presumptive nominee at this point, and I'm really shocked that that's the case. But, I did hear a lot of things like, and here comes DEI into the equation again, that her campaign was being very aggressive about putting out the message that if anyone kind of, speaks out against her bid for the presidency, that they're racist, and chauvinistic and all of those things. But I mean, come on, that's the best you got. But I guess that's kind of the MO, is that whatever you don't agree with, if you don't agree with them, you're racist, or you're you're a bigot or whatever, resort to name calling. But, I think her economic policies would be much the same as President Trump. I think that she would continue to encourage Congress and do whatever she could to spend frivolously. I think you mentioned there, or at least in some of those references, that she had like a $10 trillion green energy plan?
Yeah, it's a $10 trillion plan. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions, includes climate pollution fee and the ending of federal fossil fuel subsidies. So a lot of the same stuff we've been seeing, A
lot of the same stuff. $10 trillion. Do we have $10 trillion? Do we have $10 trillion to spend?
I don't think so.
No, our budget deficit is already $2 trillion. So where is this money going to come from? It's... The sad thing is I don't hear much fiscal responsibility coming out of the other side, much focus on fiscal responsibility coming out of the other side either, and that's a sad thing, because I think that's going to end up being the downfall of this country if we don't get the spending under control. But that's not a shocker there for anybody to hear me say that.
Absolutely. It's all the more reason, Shana, why we should pray for God's hand of protection on our country, definitely. I agree with you completely. I mean, these next 6 months will be very interesting to see, and we're definitely going to need God's hand of protection as well, as now our enemies on the world stage, obviously they know what's happening. I'm sure they're seeing what's happening with the Secret Service as well. This is not a good look for us to not have a good Secret Service and to have a president who, wherever he is right now, not sure what he's doing.
Yeah.
So.
And I couldn't even watch. I saw clips of the testimony.
Yeah.
The head of the Secret Service on yesterday, but I had to turn it off. Yeah. I mean, after 5 minutes of saying, well, I can't answer that, and, just dodging the question, I was like disgusted and frustrated and had to turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we the people deserve answers. Yeah. We do.
Yeah.
Well, folks, if you're listening on an outlet that only carries a short version of the show, we hope you know by now how to get the whole show. Hop on over to financialissues.org or download our phone app. You can also catch us on lots of social media: YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, Truth Social, and X. So find us in a way that you can make sure that you can have us with you all the time. For the rest of you, stay tuned. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more Financial Issues. Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
Every time I turn on the news, I get so frustrated. When I read a headline, it's obvious they're just trying to manipulate me for clicks and views. I just want to stay informed about what's going on without all the drama and opinions. I knew I needed to find an alternative, and thankfully I found FISM News. They keep the viewers up to date with all the latest news without the extra noise. Check them out by going to fismnews.tv. That's fismnews.tv.
Remember the good old days when companies stuck to just selling their products rather than using their profits to push an agenda? When you invest in a company, you become an owner of that company. And more businesses are now using your money to fund woke projects. We're called to be good stewards of all we have, and that includes ensuring your investments align with your biblical values. Thankfully, that's where Financial Issues can help. For over 25 years, Financial Issues has stood as a leader of biblically responsible investing, encouraging the body of Christ to keep funds out of companies that dishonor God. We provide Christian investors with the tools they need to build fiscally and biblically responsible portfolios. We're at the forefront of the fight, helping you not only with your finances, but advocating for truth and godly wisdom. For more information, go to financialissues.org. That's financialissues.org.
Well, this property was actually purchased by my great-grandfather, and we were able to come back to the farm a few years back to keep the family farm, hopefully, in the family.
Working together is a lot of fun sometimes and can be very challenging.
Iron sharpens iron.
Iron sharpens iron.
We want to try to provide the freshest possible and healthiest possible produce for our neighbors and our friends and the people that we are able to touch in their lives at the farmers markets. Samaritan Ministries is a perfect fit because we feel like we can actually partner with other Christians to help them provide for their medical needs.
We're Tony and Ginger Malik, and we are Grandma and Grandpa's farm in Sparland, Illinois, and we are Samaritan Ministry members.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues. We're glad that you're sticking with us today. Our phone lines are open. You've got some questions, 610-363-1110. We do have one caller in the queue, so let's get right to Nelson. Hi, Nelson. You're live on Financial Issues.
Hey, Nelson, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm there.
Hey, Nelson. Good morning. You're live on Financial Issues. What's on your mind?
Good morning. We were having a discussion in the text box about the sell list. I had to sell UT35 the other day, and I know I checked the list and I purchased UT55, but now it's also on the sell list. The sell list is huge, and no alerts were sent out. So I'm confused. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm trying to confirm that in my case, UT55 is really a sell. But the real concern is how big the sell list is.
Yeah. All right. So, yes, you are correct. You're very perceptive. Good job on keeping up with everything. I did ask Pat to send out an alert on that one. It just has not made it out yet. So there's a couple of steps to that. Whenever I'm going through and making the changes, I'll go ahead and mark them on there, and then the alert is sent out. So expect that alert to be coming, and it is for biblically responsible reasons. So this particular company, we have been able to confirm, does pay for abortion travel. So as part of the benefits for their employees, they will pay for their employees. They will give them money if they want to go across state lines to obtain an abortion. So that's the lowdown there, and that alert will be coming out shortly. As far as the size of the sell list, I'm sorry. There's a lot on there right now, and just to kind of let you know what we're doing, there's been a lot of companies that are coming up dirty. So we screen once a month. We screen the whole entire broad list once a month for any new violations, and there's things that come to our attention all the time. We also have, a really good core group of partners who will send us information that may not show up in the screeners. And so, the bad news is that this trend has been continuing for a long time. Once companies, large companies are very much a target for the left to get their agendas funded. So they go to these companies that are making a lot of money, and they tell them, you should really support this agenda. Sometimes the case is that the CEO is sympathetic. Sometimes it is a cause that they are very much behind. And sometimes it's just intimidation. They're afraid to be called bigots or, homophobes or, whatever it might be. Oh, you're against women's health care and different things like that. And they're afraid of what that will do to them from a marketing standpoint. So they have gone along. Now, the trend that we're seeing now is Tractor Supply stood up, Deere stood up. We've seen colleges and all different kinds of organizations canning their DEI. Even Microsoft canned their DEI program. So the sell list is very long, but the sell list, we're going through a transition. We're upgrading our website. So we're doing beta testing, I think, starting here this week pretty soon. So we're going to have a different way, hopefully a more clear, concise, straightforward way that you can get this information. So for now, what happens is we're whittling down the broad list to only things that have ever been on the buy list. So we've cautioned people for a long time, don't buy from the broad list, because not everything on the broad list meets all the criteria for buy. Otherwise, it would be on the buy list. But what we found, is that sometimes people don't understand that, they misunderstand, or they just, don't listen to it. And those companies, we don't want there to be any misperception that they're even biblically responsible just because they're on the broad list. So when a company goes to a sell, it's now staying on that sell list for about 6 months. So the reason the sell list is so long is because everything that's been on the sell list in about the last 6 months or so is listed there.
Okay, that's understandable. And just to have a positive comment, I'm 66 years old. I'm in a 65 to retirement asset allocation. I've done very well over these 7 years I've been a partner. And it just surprised me because I think I checked this website almost every day. And last week when I saw UT35 and added UT55, all of a sudden today, I must not have checked it for a while, I'm like seeing this on the list and not getting an alert. It was a surprise because I have learned in the 7 years of being a partner to sell when you guys issue a sell. One particular stock that I have a 90% loss on, and it goes all the way back to when Dan told me to sell it or told us all to sell it. So just to give partners and people who don't follow the website very often, keep up to date and listen to what Shana says especially about cells. I appreciate all you guys do, and I'll let you get to the next call. Thank y'all very much, and y'all have a blessed day.
Thanks, Nelson.
Thank you,
we appreciate
Nelson.
your partnership and those words of encouragement.
Great stuff, brother.
Let's get to. We have an ag report today? Do we have enough time to do the call?
I think, Shana, we have time to get to Rocky. Yeah.
Okay, let's do
why don't we do that? Hey, Rocky, good morning.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Doing good.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Well, I kind of have like a twofold question. The first one is my wife has a 401k that we kind of ignored because she moved to a new company, and that she's been in for like almost 3 years. So the where she was before, we haven't even fed the 401k, so it's growing, but we haven't like given additional monthly installments. And my question is, should I be moving it to like a traditional account? I could pull $30,000 a year without jumping to another tax bracket. And because of the large caps are up, am I allowed to also like pull $30,000 out of the large caps? And
how old are you, Rocky?
I'm 68. We're both retired already.
Okay.
We just retired, so we just yeah.
So the first thing that I would do would be to roll that money out of the employer plans, because you're limited to whatever their menu of investment options are, and there's a very good probability that there's not any that are biblically responsible. So, you can set up an account, like at a discount brokerage, set up an IRA, traditional IRA, as long as the money was in a traditional 401k, and you can roll that money over into an IRA. Then you have biblically responsible investment options. You can follow our strategy. You can start to set that up in a biblically responsible way. And then I would ask for some help from your tax professional to make sure that $30,000 a year is what you can move out. And then I would consider doing that, especially if you have a very large percentage of your liquid assets already in the 401k.
Oh, so I can just roll it all over and there won't be tax consequences?
Correct. As long as you roll it to a traditional IRA, you can do that. Well, folks, we're going to hear from Craig Halgert with the Ag Report. We're going to take a short break after that and then come back with more financial issues. Give us a call if you've got a question, 610-363-1110. Here comes Craig.
This is Craig Halgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for July 23rd. Well, a move by the Chinese government to cut interest rates in order to stimulate that economy led to aggressive short covering by funds here in the U.S. who felt that the move could lead to increased demand for corn and beans from China. As a result, December corn ended the day 10.25 cents higher at $4.15 per bushel. Beans also benefited from the fund short covering. Now, here in the U.S., the weather is very conducive to the production of soybeans. The crop is currently rated at 68% good to excellent, with 65% of the crop blooming and 29% setting pods. Soybeans had a huge day yesterday, with November beans up 32 3/4 cents as they closed at 10.68 3/4. We saw firmer closes in the wheat market as concerns over the quality of the EU crop seem to be on the rise. Now here in the U.S., the spring wheat crop is rated at 77% good to excellent, and 89% of that crop is headed out. At the close, Minneapolis September wheat was 13 cents higher at 6.22 3/4. Kansas City was a penny and 3/4 stronger to close at 5.71 3/4. And Chicago rose by 5 1/4 cents to close at 5.48. Cotton futures came within 6 points of matching the life of contract low before staging a little rally to close in about the middle of the day's trading range. At the closing bell, December futures were 8 points lower at 70.62. Livestock futures were stronger. We had October live cattle $1.12.5 better at $184.60 per hundredweight. September feeder cattle were 72.5 cents higher as they settled at $256.50 per hundred. And October lean hog futures rose by $1.42.5, ending the day at $75.97.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures had a positive session. When the closing bell rang, August futures were up 16 points at 20.14. Well, this has been Craig Howgard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. The call to surrender to Jesus is one step in our growth in holiness. And it doesn't just mean you give over a few things. It means He gets it all, including our finances, our investments. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partner today. Learn more by going to financialissues.org/join. That's financialissues.org/join.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Been a lively show here, Shana. It's been a fun one. Of course, a lot to talk about here from this crazy political cycle, as well as the questions we've been getting. These have been good. A headline that came across my eyes, Shana, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. This is a guide to Kamala Harris's views on abortion, the economy, and more. So as a senator, Harris co-sponsored legislation that would ban states from imposing any restrictions on abortion rights and voted against a bill that would ban abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. So I've heard from some people, family members, friends, different people, when I say things like, yeah, this group of people, including Kamala Harris, wants to be able to kill babies up until the moment they're born, and they say, no, that's not true. Well, apparently it is true. Even during the 2019 presidential campaign that we referenced, Harris shared a proposal that would force states to get permission from the DOJ before making laws concerning abortion access. She was outraged over the overturn of Roe v. Wade from several years ago. And then last year, she launched a nationwide reproductive health rights tour promoting abortion, and also became the first U.S. vice president to visit a Planned Parenthood clinic at a stop in Minnesota. Harris is expected to be far more aggressive in her support for abortion than Biden if she clinches her party's nomination. Jenna, I think it's a no-brainer here. We need to use our vote for good.
Well, what a claim to fame to be the first vice president to ever visit a Planned Parenthood center. So proud. No, I think you're right. She has been a very outspoken advocate for abortion, and we can expect nothing different than if she becomes president. But really, she wants Congress, a branch of government established by our Constitution, to get permission from the DOJ. Let's see, who appoints the people in the DOJ? Aren't those unelected bureaucrats appointed by the current administration? She wants Congress to get permission from basically the executive branch to pass laws. I mean, has she read our Constitution?
Probably not.
Probably not. But, that's what progressives really are all about. Progressives see the past as being flawed, and that we need to progress into the future. So that means, maybe that old outdated Constitution or that old antiquated biblical text is just, not up to par for today's issues. And we need to progress to something different. And, that's a shame. Now, I'm equally disappointed. Well, maybe not equally, but I am disappointed in the Republican Party's decision to water down the Republican platform when it comes to abortion language as well. So, I was getting very hopeful that our country was doing an about face and turning in a different direction. Now I'm not so sure. So I'm really glad. Can't really do anything about, who gets elected except for a vote, but I only get one vote if I'm, doing it the right way. I only get one vote, and what's going to happen in this country is going to happen. I mean, I don't think any God-loving Christian American really and truly wanted America to be able to have a decision to kill babies in the womb. And that's why I'm glad that organizations like Preborn exist. So yes, we need to vote. We need to be a good steward of democracy. We need to be a good citizen of our country and make our voices heard. But we also need to do more than that. We need to fund good organizations like Preborn Ministries, who is really pushing back against the darkness of abortion. So if you want to help support Preborn, go to our website, financialissues.org, and you can find a link to Preborn. You can find out about the good work that they're doing, and you can put your money where your values are.
Well said, Shana. That's good. Got a couple things here on social we can get to. Great comment from Eddie in Tennessee on the chat saying, not only do we need to thank companies for departing from DEI priorities, but we need to send thanks and kudos to FISM for their expertise, knowledge, and advice. Before I became aware of FISM, I was very cautious and fearful of the market. Now I have a lot of confidence in investing in the market with a portfolio that is up 30%. Eddie, that's great. Thank you, FISM, for your Lord-led biblical emphasis and approach. Thank you, Shana, for hosting the show, your advice, leadership. Thank you, Seth, for your coordination of the show. God bless you guys. That's awesome, Eddie. Thank you so much.
Eddie. Those words of encouragement are really helpful to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we just got this one that came in, Shana, from Janet on Facebook, is saying, nice to see you guys on Facebook. I usually use the app on Facebook today. I'm retired, 60, and I use the 55 to 65 model. I'm due to review my allocations and having a little trouble with my cash calculating my CDs. Hopefully I can get this fixed tomorrow. I'll call Pat if I need to. But do you have any advice for Shana, for Janet there, Shana?
Yeah, so I would just say use the same ticker symbol as your money market. Whatever your money market or your cash account is in your brokerage account, use that same symbol. Make sure there's no spaces, no dots, no dashes in there. The field is very sensitive to those kind of things, and it just won't populate. But if you use your money market symbol, you should be able to put in instead of shares, just the dollar amount, and that should calculate, and then you're going to code it to CDs on your tracker.
Awesome, Shana. Moving over here to Ask Shana, we got Kim is 63, and she's wondering about the difference between a fiduciary and a financial advisor. What's the difference? Some financial advisors are held to a suitability standard, and they can recommend products to you that help them earn a commission, even if they're more expensive for you. Others go a step beyond suitability and are considered fiduciaries. How important is it to choose a fiduciary financial advisor that is bound to the fiduciary standard?
Yeah. So it really depends on the level of help that you need. And we've talked about this, recently on the show, that not all financial professionals are financial advisors. So to call yourself a financial advisor, you have to have a certain license to do that. And it's the financial advisors that are held to that fiduciary standard. So, a suitability standard just means that I'm not knowingly going to recommend something for you that is not good for you. I would say more financial professionals fall under that category than under the fiduciary category. But, a fiduciary has certain responsibilities. They have to not only know their customer, they have to know the customer in depth. They have to know what their goals are, what their risk tolerance are, and they have a responsibility to put the client's interest ahead of their own. Well, that kind of sounds like a no-brainer. Most people are under the perception that every financial professional does that, but that's not the case. Some people are only licensed to sell insurance products and mutual funds. They can't sell stocks. They can't sell certain other products. So, all they really have to do is make sure that they're not going to harm you by recommending a certain thing. A lot of times they don't even have an obligation to monitor the investment that they sell you, and on an ongoing basis, which is the perception for most people. They think if I buy something from a financial professional, they're going to let me know if I ever need to sell it or if I ever need to do something different with it. But that's a bad assumption to make. So you should have a really good discussion if you're going to hire somebody, if you're going to pay somebody for financial advice. You need to make sure that they have the proper licenses to do so, that they can sell the kind of products that you're interested in, and the fiduciary standard is the higher standard to go for. A lot of times you can tell because financial advisors typically work on a fee basis, so they either charge you a certain dollar amount or a percentage of the assets that they manage. That's one kind of clue that you probably are in a fiduciary kind of relationship. If you pay commissions per transaction, then you are probably not in a fiduciary kind of relationship.
Good stuff there, Shana. Thank you for that. Might be the last one for the day here. Tim and Janice, longtime partners of ours. Thank you guys. Saying thanks for your continuing support and leadership at FISM. You're a blessing. We know it's a personal sacrifice, so thank you. Back in 2019, a friend from church told us about Dan's radio program, and we just want to say, wow, what an impact. About 60% of our retirement funds are in a rollover IRA. And we'd like your advice as to a charitable gift annuity and maybe some other questions as well. Is it possible to have you or someone who works with you give us that advice?
Yeah. This is the kind of thing that I love to do in my practice. My most favorite thing to do is charitable planning, generational planning, planned giving, and that's part of, the kind of financial advice that you can seek out and pay for from financial professionals. You also need to know what their philosophy is about those kind of things too. But that's one of my favorite things to do. I wish I was in a position to do one-on-one consultations. I'm not at this time. I haven't been able to take new clients for a while, but I do have one advisor that works with me. You can get his contact information by emailing pat@financialissues.org. She can share with you the name. You can call. You can set up an appointment. There's no obligation, just to find out, what kind of services that we offer, what kind of service you can expect, and what the cost is. If there's a quick answer, I'm happy if you have a more specific question, if you want to send that in, I'm happy to try to answer that. But, in private practice, I am held to that fiduciary duty. So there's a lot of things that I have to know. And most of the time, these kind of questions are not quick answers. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. So I would suggest set up an appointment with Jason, find out if it's a good fit for you. If not, try to send us a more specific question. And we have some things on the horizon for partners as well, too. So don't have a lot of time to tell you about that today. But we're here to remind you every day that God owns it all. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow to remind you that the Master's coming back. There's going to be a quiz, and we want to help you be a good steward with everything that you've been given. I'm back tomorrow for more financial issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.